First of all, it went unnoticed to me. I didn't know what it was or what was up there. It seems to me a man-made river. I've just assumed that when I'm asleep, trains come out and haul things on the High Line.
All of a sudden, like Alice in Wonderland, through the keyhole and you're in a magical place. There's New York City all around, and there you are. It's the wheat fields of Kansas. It's an alpine meadow. It's magic.
It makes you think it's leading you somewhere. So it's like an open path to your imagination.
That slight elevation makes such an incredible difference. You left the city as we know it.
The whole idea that something's been left alone long enough for nature to actually like take a foothold in it and create this green space without while no one was paying attention is fantastic to me. I love it.
There are these railroad tracks. Suddenly you're in the middle of a rural experience. The beauty of it astounds you.
One day he finally got me to go up there and I fell in love, and ever since I've been one of its biggest supporters.
At moments, like in the spring, and you see the flowers coming out, it's shockingly beautiful.
It does look good with snow on it. It looks really good.
Everybody loves the High Line.
You don't see what's below you. You see the sky, you see the sunshine, you see trees and plants. And it seems like it's an island within an island.
It's only been unused for 20 years, but there's already 7 seasons of wildflowers that have just seeded themselves up there.
It looks beautiful.
The High Line is an elevated rail structure that was built in the 1930s to get rail traffic off the city streets. Previously, that rail traffic was causing a great deal of accidents and many fatalities.
It currently runs for 1.5 miles. It goes from Gansevoort Street in the meat market all the way through the heart of the Gallery District and ends at the Javits Center at 34th Street.
I never knew what it actually was until I went with the class trip. We would go in buildings. It's like almost like Superman flying through the streets. I didn't even notice it at first. I was walking under it and I was like, oh, that's a Harlem.
Being that it was abandoned, it still looked pretty good. And that how trees were growing on top of it, it was nice.
It's like walking above everything. You're at peace.
I could have completely imagined myself in Pennsylvania, walking along the rail track, of course. But what really gave it away was the sounds, city sounds.
It's unique. It's like walking among the clouds. Just as when you walk through New York's neighborhoods, you experience different parts of the streets. The High Line will be like that as well.
The High Line is this very mysterious ribbon, and the idea of restoring it and creating a park out of it is just a beautiful, romantic, and very aesthetic idea.
The High Line is 1.5 miles long, and there are 7 acres of open space up on top of it.
I think that there's the room to accommodate formal gardens and sculpture parks and sidewalk cafes and galleries and everything that makes this city great, but in a different way that redefines the urban experience for New Yorkers.
We want this park to be as interesting, as innovative, as unusual as the structure itself.
Central Park was built 150 years ago during tough economic times, so it's a really good model for us now.
Central Park is a 19th century wonder. What do we have in the 21st century in the way of park opportunities? Well, certainly nothing like 843 acres, but we have the High Line. Will it look like Central Park? No, it's not a refuge from the city, it's part of Lower Manhattan. And that's a wonderful thing.
In the mid-1850s, the Hudson River Railroad laid tracks between Albany and Lower Manhattan.
It ran down the middle of 10th Avenue, and they called it Death Avenue because so many people were run over by the train.
Every train had to be preceded by somebody on a horseback waving a red flag. He was called the West Side Cowboy. This may have made some sense in the 1840s, kind of an anachronism by the 1930s. Finally, they settled on what they would do. They would raise the tracks between the blocks, not over the street, which meant the railroad had to purchase a vast number of parcels of property. It was the largest single buyout by a private interest of real estate in Manhattan. The railroad cars would come in at the 3rd story in all these buildings. Meanwhile, the streets are free for the rest of us. But we use trucks now, and this went out of use by 1980.
It still looks strong and stable. Like you could walk on it and not be afraid to fall.
The structure was overbuilt the last hundreds of years without maintenance. The structure is quite intact. If you look closely, you'll see Art Deco elements in it. The railroad went to the effort of making a special pattern for its railings, not just pick elements off the shelf.
The High Line, as it has been, is not a friendly element in the community, which I think is one of the things that is fueling some of the opposition. Very few people in the community have had the opportunity to go up onto it. Instead, we have people who have been dripped on or have had pigeon droppings coming down. So it's this ugly structure up above.
Anyone who gets up on it and walks on it is euphoric, but the underside is the most important part of it. It has to be as positive on the street level as it is above it.
People have to stop looking at the High Line as a problem and start thinking of it as a tremendous asset.
I have a romantic view of under the tracks. I grew up in Chicago where we had the elevator. I see jazz clubs. I don't see death and destruction. I don't see horrific things happening. After all it is an urban canopy.
You start to imagine the different things that could happen underneath the High Line, whether it's through-block connections, public space, or galleries, bars that sort of integrate that beautiful structure underneath.
You'll see there's a new car wash that's built under the High Line at street level, repainted the whole structure of it. If you just look at that little piece of it on 14th Street, you can imagine how the underside is activated, used, lit, and energized.
The High Line's going to be safe because it's going to be a well-lit environment. There's going to be a security patrol up there at all times.
Making a linear park safe is much easier than a regular park. You can close the access points at night. It's easier for a security guard to patrol.
The most important thing is it's going to be a well-used park environment.
The kids in this neighborhood have to cross streets and big highways to get to their parks, and this would change that.
People are affected by their environment, and their quality of life is affected by park and green spaces.
As a mom, I think the High Line could be perfect.
What you have to do every day, whether it's sleet, whether it's 100 degrees, whether it's snowing, you've got to get the kids outside.
They can play all day. They can run 1.5 miles.
It has the potential to be one of the world's greatest jungle gyms. That is, you can go vertically, you can go sideways, you can run, you can expend your energy.
They won't see a car, and the cars won't get anywhere near them.
Parks do a number of things. They promote health, they create value, they enhance identity, and they make connections.
That area is one of the most starved for open spaces, and even with the Hudson River Park, it will remain so.
This is a huge city that requires lungs, requires places to breathe.
First of all, it's a good investment for cities. When you create a public park space, the city makes money because it helps the value of all the land around it. But secondly, it's something spiritual. I mean, why do people want to be here?
It's where people meet, it's where people meditate and think and read and walk their dogs and kiss and promises. Parks are very important.
I don't know if there's any other parks like that, but I guess it would be the first, so I think it would make history.
I love the High Line because I think it will become one of the quintessential New York experiences. People come to New York to walk on it, to stroll the end, to have a cappuccino, to look at great art, and they're going to come because they want to live near it.
You'll be able to go through 20, 30 blocks without crossing the street, without stopping at the red light.
In some places we'll create plazas that are part of new buildings that are built. In other areas there'll be spectacular elevators that will come up into it from the street.
An elevated promenade, a recollection of the train system.
I can have movies, I can have clubs, I can have galleries, I can have shops, I can have education.
You could step out of some of the office buildings and the old Nabisco factory down there and walk out into the High Line Park.
The West Side needs one large, organized park system. You can start out and walk up the Hudson River Park and then swoop up onto the High Line, loop around the High Line and come back down. And this will all connect to the new green space that's envisioned running all the way up to 42nd Street.
People could enjoy a different aspect of New York rather than just the street level parks that are all over the place.
This will be funded because it's a bold idea that makes New York greater.
We have to have partnership with support of the city, of the state, and the federal government. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity for private philanthropy as well.
What a loss it will be if this unique opportunity is eliminated and turned into another housing block.
If we were to tear it down, we could never replace this. You could never reassemble all of the easements and all of the rights of way that are here.
There was so much frustration after September 11th. In some ways really reminded people how much they love their city. The High Line's a great way to contribute to that, you know? This is a kind of rebuilding. This is an act of creation to create a space where people from all walks of life are going to mix and mingle together, and where the very best of what we all love about New York is going to be in action right here every day.
This thing could become something extraordinary in 4 years or 5 years, not 40 or 50 years. And the fact that you can attach yourself to this thing that will actually become something that you can take your kid to, that I can take my son to, is really, really fun.
It's a great gift that we're going to leave, that we're going to borrow from an early generation, clean up in ours, and hand to the one that follows us. You don't get that opportunity very often.
One thing people can do is go to our website and sign up to receive our email newsletter and find out how you can help make this a reality.